Hello everybody, welcome to the stream today. My name is Matt, I'm the training manager here at Beacon Software. Today we're going to be working on the accounting side of the software. This is one of those pieces that we really want to make sure customers are comfortable with. There's a lot to it, so we'll kind of go through it a little bit slower today. But if we have any questions, there is a chat box to the right. Feel free to put any questions, comments, anything in that chat box. We'll kind of go through them one by one. So we'll start out by the beginning parts of accounting, kind of go through some of the payments, the commissions, how to do that. Then we'll end with some of the QuickBooks things, how the new QuickBooks Online will work within the software, and then how QuickBooks Desktop will work within the software. But definitely, if any questions come up through the whole thing, I got a chat box. I'll have it open. Feel free to ask any questions as we go through, and we'll kind of just jump straight in. So at this point, we're looking at our Dispatch Anywhere screen. The calls at this point would be finished, and then we need to check them over. And that's where we're going to get into this third tab here on the accounting, and we're going to create the invoices or post the jobs. All right, so basically what that means is we need to check these calls over for accuracy. We want to make sure the right services are on there. We want to make sure maybe the drivers, if they were required to do something, they did put that on the call, so on and so forth. So that's going to be this first step here. Before I jump right into that though, just these three boxes here, when we click on the accounting, these are going to be 30 days worth of numbers to help you along. So the first box is unbilled jobs. So right now we have 29 unbilled jobs within the last 30 days. That basically means we have 29 jobs that haven't been checked over or that need to be checked over before they become part of our accounts receivables. We have 7 open invoices within the last 30 days, and then we have almost $9,800 worth of payments in the last 30 days. These little red boxes here, underbilled and overdue, basically what underbilled means is that we have calls that are older than 30 days that haven't been checked over. This is more of a warning for you. So we want to make sure that all your calls are posted, or if they are not posted, if they should have been canceled or whatever the reason is, you really should never see this. If you're seeing this, either a call slipped through or it's possible that you missed a call or a call never got canceled. Whatever the reason is, you're going to want to check those calls, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Overdue, you're probably going to see this a majority of the time. That just basically means you have bills that are older than 30 days. And I'll show you, we can click this when we get here to get kind of a quick snapshot of the ones that are overdue. We also have a bunch of reports that we're going to look at here today also. These are buttons we can actually click on. If I click on this blue part, all this is going to do is it's going to do a quick search for me and show me those 29 calls that haven't been posted. So I could go through here and post the calls. Now, if let's just say this call here, 9348, let's just say this call we wanted to post. I could go through the entire process, which we're going to go through here in a second, but we do have a quick action right here where this would take me into my posting screen just for this call. All right. This is useful if you're just looking up one call or you need to fix one call in real time. It's an option just to go right to the screen for that call only, but I'm going to show you how to do everything in bulk here in a second. All right. So just know that is there for every single call as well. If I click the underbilled button here, this will show me every single call that's older than 30 days, and you may need to set your filter. Now this is our test database, so it only pulls 100 results to begin with. We can do show more, which would pull the next 100 calls. In this case I have 141, so we're good. You could also use that little drop down that was there and do show max. Show max is going to pull in 1,000 results at a time. If you have a lot of calls in there, chances are you've missed either a bunch of old stuff. If you need help kind of cleaning up some of that stuff so it works correctly, just give us a call. We can always help you with that as well. So let's get into the beginning parts here. So I'm going to close this out. I'm going to actually go into the create invoice / post job area. Whenever we go into anything accounting, you're going to need to set your filters. So this defaults to today's date. So we're going to go ahead and change this. Now I can filter this by division. If I only want to look at a certain account, a certain job, a certain driver, etc. In the finished on, I can do anytime. That means in our case here, it's going to pull in all 141 jobs that we have. But I could do a date range. I could do, just yesterday, this month, etc. I'm going to do anytime just to bring in a good sample here. and I'm going to search. We do have an option to include impounded vehicles if you want to post those vehicles also. Some customers do, some don't. If you do post it, that money that's on your impounded vehicles would be part of your accounts receivables if you post it. Otherwise, it doesn't become part of your receivables until you release that car out of impound. All right, so we'll go ahead and search here. So this brings up a list, and actually we have a couple extra ones because we were looking at 141 plus the current ones. So we actually have 166 invoices that need to be checked over. And you'll see a lot of these have a red exclamation point on these, or an error, or at least a warning on some of these. You're going to get a warning for a couple of reasons. It could be that if you look over here, if it's the pencil, that means we're possibly missing something on the call that you said was required for billing, or you have a bad VIN number. If the arrow is highlighted, that means you have a bad service or something's wrong with your service, whether it's the mileage that isn't run or maybe quantities are zero, just things that aren't common. We're going to try to flag that for you to make sure we're not missing anything. So if we look at this first one, I can open this up and see I have a mileage and a tow on here, and my quantity for my mileage is 0. That's uncommon, and the mileage calculator wasn't run. So that's why we flagged it as a potential problem. And we'll take a look at this in a second. Chances are there's a problem with our call as well. So if we go ahead and open it up. So test call. So in this case, our VIN odometer is missing, and then also our PO number is missing that we said was required for billing. So if I wanted to fix part of this, I could run my calculation here. Maybe the dispatcher forgot to put some in-route miles on this, so I'm going to go ahead and add that as well. I'll add my PO number, and let's say I'm going to use the magic VIN. We'll use Beacon 2 in Ohio to get our VIN number, all right? And then I'll make up an odometer reading. I'll say it's 12.3. Right? So we'll go ahead and save this. All right? So once I fix whatever I need to fix, my error goes away. All right, so we basically fix this call, and I can either select it now or I can select all of them once I fix the entire page. So it just depends. But you're going to go through this list and fix all of these. Now, the buttons up across the top, I could open up each individual call one at a time. If you click this button, this will open up all the calls all at once, so you can work through your calls one at a time. Most of the time, you probably won't see this many errors. Unless you're just starting with us, you may see this, and it may be a training for the drivers. Maybe they're missing something, or the dispatchers are missing something. Typically, this step, though, you shouldn't see this many problems. But again, this is our test database. So we'll fix a couple more calls here. So this is, actually, probably a lot of these are probably the same. Let's get a different one here. Let's look at this one. This one just has a problem with the call here. So I'll go into it. So this is just a PO. So same idea. I can just go ahead and fix this, save it, and then that error should go away. All right. The only other times you get those errors or potential problems is if we have multiple drivers on the same call. We're going to flag it as a potential problem. We just do that because typically there's additional commissions that need to be paid out, or usually maybe you have to fix those calls a little bit more. So we do flag those as a potential problem if we have multiple drivers. Let's see if we have any here. Potential job services. Yeah, these are all job services. It kind of tells us if we expand it, what's wrong with it. But if we had multiple drivers, it would say there's multiple drivers on this vehicle, please review, or multiple drivers on this call, please review it. Now, let's just say there's nothing wrong with it, or this thing is flagging, like this one has storage at 0. So this is flagging it as a $0 line item that's non-mileage. It's usually uncommon, all right? So you could look at this and say, no, that was actually correct. They came right away, they got it, we didn't charge storage for it, whatever the reason is. You can always override that and still save it. So you still have that option to override it when you're posting your calls, all right? So I showed you that we could fix it by going into the call. We could also fix the services right from here. We don't have to go into the call if we don't want to. So let's say this mileage, I just need to fix that, or maybe I need to update this price. I could just click this little pencil icon, and I can use the calculator right from here and run my mileage. So then it fixes it. Here's the difference, though. If you use this service, and then I went out, maybe I closed this, maybe I reset my filter, or I did just something else, that change doesn't save until I actually post it. All right. So you got to be careful about making changes on the services. You really kind of want to try to post those right away. Otherwise, you're going to lose what you changed. If you do it from within the call, though, you're fine because it's already saved as you exit out of it. So just be careful about that part of it. The only other buttons that are on here are these merging buttons. All right. So you see we can merge an entire invoice into another one, or we can split services off onto its own invoice. All right. So what I mean by that, sometimes you're going to post a call, and let's say this 9349. All right, so let's go ahead and post this call. All right. So you posted it. Later on, you found out, you're like, oh, wait a second. Dollies needed to be added to this, or maybe even labor, for example. So we go back to the call, 9349. Let's say we want to add dollies, and maybe we needed to add some labor. All right, so we go ahead and save that. What happens now on our screen here, that same invoice, it's getting posted as a -2. That basically means anytime you add services after the call's originally been posted, it's going to post it as a -2, a -3, a -4, depending on how many times you've done it. So in our case, if we looked at an invoice real quick, what happens, so here's our page 1, which we have the dollies and the labor, but page 2 was our mileage, tow, and in route. So what it can be used for, or where it's helpful, is you possibly, let's say you may have a single call, but maybe party A is paying for certain services, party B is paying for other services on that call. You have the ability to split it off between 1 and 2 or 3, depending on how many times you need to split it, and still keep it as one call in your system. Most of the time, though, for most customers, that's not the case. Usually it's just we had to add a service after the fact. So we can use this merge button to say, okay, I don't want this on its own page. I want everything to be part of the same invoice. So I'm going to merge it back to a -1 invoice. So now when I look at our invoice, everything's together. So anytime you add a service onto a call after it's been posted, you have to repost that service. Think about it as each line item on that call always has to be posted, whether it was added at the beginning or later on. All right. Now, we get a lot of questions about how to unpost a call. It's simply deleting the services and re-adding them. All right, so if I added another tow, in route, let's just do a save. See how now it's going to be a -3 this time? I can say, nope, I want this as a -1. All right, so there can be times that you have to merge it. The other option that you may use, let's say, these are both Bob's Cadillac, this will work. For some reason, usually this would be a case of a tow out situation where you have the first part that you towed into maybe your impound lot, and then the second call was your tow out. You would still create 2 calls for that in the system. So let's pretend this is our example. This was our tow in with storage, this was our tow out. We have a merge button that you could merge the entire call together. So let's just say this whole thing, this is actually all supposed to be part of 9348-1. I can hit OK. What that's going to do, that merges that entire call together. Even though it's 2 calls in our system, our invoice is going to show 1. That can be useful again for usually for tow outs or any other situations like that where you need or you had 2 calls but they were all the same. The big thing on that, your bill to on those calls has to be the same or that function does not work. So just be careful about that if you're merging any of your invoices together. The other buttons where you can split things off, you could technically just take, so I merged 2 completely calls together. Maybe this mileage service for some reason from 9338 needed to be part of this call as well. Well, I can split or move an individual service as well. Oops. And move that one service, oops, I picked the wrong one, but move that one service over to another call. So that can be helpful again, possibly depending on the situation. Most of the time when people are doing this, they're either changing it from a -2 to a -1 though, or in the case of usually AAA calls or any motor club call where you may have overage, a lot of people either put everything on one call, but like let's say that mileage service or the overage service is not being paid for by AAA or by the motor club, you can split it off onto its own -2 invoice. So this is the part maybe the customer paid. This is the part that the motor club might pay us. So you could use these buttons to split calls, merge them, break off an individual service, but you have a couple different options when using this. The last option is you have the option to just trash can or delete the service from here. But again, if you do that, just make sure that you save it before you continue. Otherwise, it's not truly deleted until you actually save it. But that's the main basics of the posting screen, checking over your calls, making sure they're correct. This part of it, compared to anything in the accounting section, is really the most important part. You can't do anything else in accounting unless this step is done. You're basically verifying the calls, making sure they're correct before you actually push them into your AR, before you take payments against them, before you calculate commission against those totals. You want to make sure the call's correct. So nothing else in accounting basically works until this step is done. Also, all your accounting reports, these calls wouldn't show up on those accounting reports until this step is done as well. So when it comes to accounting in our software, this step is the most important. This step also has to be done if you're going to be transferring things to QuickBooks. We want to make sure verified totals are being sent over to QuickBooks first as well. So that's the posting part of it. A lot of people do this pretty well. We usually recommend, if you can, to try to do this daily. A lot of customers will check their calls over. So today's the 4th. A lot of customers would have checked their calls over from the 3rd. But it just depends. Some people use the driver's tickets. Some people can visually see the call and know what's wrong with it. A lot of times I talk to customers, they already know. They're like, oh yeah, that call, yeah, we had to add dollies to it, or that was that wreck last night that we had to do this for, so on and so forth. So as long as you're correcting your calls, that's all that matters. But the more often you do this, the less amount of a list that you have to go through. So we do recommend trying to do this daily if you can. All right, so we're going to close this. We'll just hit no on that. All right. Now these boxes, so I posted a couple calls for this date range. You'll notice that these numbers didn't change. Well, these numbers will load the first time you log into the system. And then if you want to refresh them, you can either log out and log back in, or we've added a refresh button here so we can see that number dropped. As of right now, you'll have to refresh it. Eventually, though, it will auto refresh it. Just right now, it has to, you have to manually refresh it. So once those calls are posted, they move over into the Open Invoices section here. So again, I could click this button. This will show me all the open invoices within the last 30 days. So I can just kind of quickly click through them. This is more of a quick snapshot type thing. If you need to check it, usually if you're looking for a bigger date range, you're going to run a report. But we'll look at that here in a little bit. I could click the overdue. So again, depending on how many I have outstanding, I might have to keep clicking show more to keep opening this. But again, this is a quick snapshot. So from here, you could edit or go back into the call if you needed to. You can fix it from here if you needed to. If there was any payments, let's take a quick payment on this one. If it has a partial payment on it, you would see this View Payments button right here. And we're going to look at this in a second, but if you go here, this will show you the payments that were taken on that call too. So there is an option to see it right from here. It's kind of a hidden thing unless a payment's taken, but you can see that if there's any partial payments, you'll see that link underneath it as well. We're really going to get into this section here though. So for any of our customers that are doing any sort of motor club billing, let's go ahead and click on this. After the call is posted or verified or checked over, it's going to drop into this motor club billing section. So this would show us all the invoices that have not been billed yet. So we have Allstate, this BG Auto account, so on and so forth. We would be able to select the ones that we want to send. We hit send invoices at the top. And what this does, this goes out to the different motor club accounts and it will bill all of them instead of you going to the site manually. And it usually bills, depending on the account, like a Gero can bill like over 100 within a couple seconds. The only one that takes a little bit longer is Geico. It's just a little bit slower, but they all push through. It's just a little bit slower than any of the other ones. Now, if we get some errors on here, the exclamation point with the circle, you should never see that. If you see that there's a problem, you got to give us a call. We got to figure out why it's like that. The triangle, though, that just means that something is wrong. Like in this case, it can't navigate to the search page. That's because we don't have any usernames or passwords set up. You could get some different error messages on a Jero, like this one's missing the PO number, things like that. So this should try to walk you through and tell you what's wrong with it. But if you can't figure out what the error message is, just call us. We can walk you through how to fix any of them that may have a problem. If you get exclamation points, or maybe you try to submit invoices too early. So the same rules that apply on the Motor Club's website, if you can't bill for 24 or 48 hours, you're not going to be able to bill through our system. Let's say you tried to submit too many for whatever reason, and you're going to get back errors on all of those. We can clear all the errors in one shot for you instead of you clearing them one by one or trying to resubmit them through here. So just call us and we can do that. The other way to clear an error is to change something on the call. So we'll just take this first one. You can change anything. It doesn't matter what you change. Oh, we don't have an account. Let's just set this Bob's. I don't have that Allstate account anymore. Let's just set this for. Let's use one of the BG ones real quick. Let's say I put just a period here. Oh, got a bunch of required fields. Hold on. They changed some of the stuff afterwards. Let me just throw something in here. There we go. So as long as I change one thing, it's going to clear the error for us. So then we can submit and batch again if we need to. We can select all of them and submit them. So we got a question here. Step away for a second. Apologies if you mentioned it. Can you undo posting a job? Do you just undo the finish? No. To undo a posting, I'll just go into this call to do it. Oh, that one has a payment. Let's find one here real quick for you. Select anytime. So any call that's already been posted, all you do is go back into the call and delete the services off and basically just re-add them. Anytime you re-add services to it, that will basically force you to repost that call. So basically you're just deleting the services off of it. So, but yeah, you can keep it finished because all the timestamps and everything will stay the same then at that point. So just delete the services, re-add the ones that you need, and then it will go back into the posting queue there. You're welcome. All right, so that's the Submit Motor Club Invoices part of it. This has to be set up on and through ToeMagic and through the settings part of it. In 2 weeks, Thursday at 2 o'clock again, I'll be going over all the settings part of it. But if you need to set it up, obviously before that, just call us. We can help you with it. All right. We also have print invoices and print statements here. All right, so this is for batch printing. So if I do print invoices, this would be, okay, I want all my invoices, maybe my customer's requesting all the invoices for September for Matt's Racing Supply. I think I have some in here. And I can either do all the invoices, paid or just unpaid ones for that customer. So if I run report. All right, so there's two. So I have one paid invoice and then one unpaid invoice for this. So from here I can print it or print both of them. I can email this as a PDF. I can fax it from here. I could also save it as another file format if I needed to as well. So you have a couple different options if you're doing it in batch. Same thing applies for statements. All right. So if I wanted, let's just say I wanted all the statements for all my accounts, I can leave this blank here. And I can either run a date range. Now, you got to be careful on the statements. If you set the invoice date to, so if I set this through, I want all the invoices through September 30th. All right, and I hit run report. This is going to pull up multiple pages. Basically, any account that, no, I have some of them are going to have errors on it. Any account basically that has a statement through 9/30 will run here. All right, or at least an open balance will run here. The invoice date from and to, though, the from is going to be if you want, maybe you have an account that they just want the, hey, I want a statement just for September. I don't care about any of the stuff from, August or July or anything like that. I just want the statement for September. So you have the option there to set that, but be careful because the statement really should be all outstanding balances that they have. So just be careful that you're not setting this and not sending that customer open invoices that they truly have. But I can do division, certain account, and so on and so forth. These checkboxes that are on here only show accounts with statement as billing method and only show accounts with invoices billing method. That's going to be a setting that you have set. So let me see here. If I bring up, let's go to my settings real fast. Go to my accounts. So we'll pick this one here. So under invoicing, include in batch print, I can set my accounts for invoices only, statements only, or invoices and statements. What that does when you're doing this or when this is checked, if Matt's Racing Supply was only a statement account, if I was printing out batch invoices for all my accounts, it would not be included. I can still run it for that individual account if I want to, but when I run it in batch for all the accounts, it won't be included. Same idea for the statements. So maybe you want to print all your statements at the end of the month, but you have some motor clubs that you don't want to be included in this. On those motor club accounts in your settings, you would set those for invoice only accounts, and they wouldn't be included in your batch statements that you run. Again, you can still print that individual statement if you want to, it's just not included in batch. Right. So that's what these checkboxes mean and how it relates to your accounts here. Now, when we're talking about invoices and statements, we can also set up automatically sending these. So we'll go back into the settings here. Let me blow this up here. So on the Matt's Racing Supply account, if I go to invoicing, you can do different invoices or statement styles, and there's a bunch of them in here. If you go to our help section, which is this little question mark in the corner, there's actually a help article that shows you all the different invoice styles and statement styles. But right here, you can set this to automatically send invoices either when that job is finished. So as soon as that job's finished by the driver or dispatch, it will send it out to the customer, and then we can select that we want to send it by email or fax. We could also do it when the job's created or posted, which is a little bit safer because at that point somebody's at least checked it over for accuracy. But again, we can send it by billing, email, or fax. All right. The email or fax that we pull from is on the previous tab at this billing tab right here. Whatever email address or fax number that we have here, this is what we're using when we automatically send this stuff out. So this has to be set up before this will work also. This little box here, this is just an invoice message. This is specific to, in this case, Matt's Racing Supplies. This will appear on all of my invoices in the little notes section at the bottom. And then this show photo URL on invoice. If you have a customer that requests that they want to see the pictures that maybe your driver took or any signatures, anything like that, you can put a link on their invoice. So if I bring up, let's go. I'll pick this one. This is fine. If we bring up this invoice, there we go. There's a link. So if I had any pictures on here, they could click this and it would just show all the pictures that I have on my call. And then here's my note that I have at the bottom here. The statements work very similar. I can pick a different style, and I can either send it out. Statements can be sent out daily, and these will go out in the morning at 5 a.m. every single day. You can send them weekly, and you can, again, email or fax. Weekly is going to go out every Sunday for you. You can send them out monthly, and that goes out on the 1st of every month. Or I can pick a custom date. Maybe I want them to go out by the 4th of the month. The reason you might want to do this, maybe you don't close your month out exactly on the last day of the month. Maybe it does take a couple days to kind of get caught up for the last week or so. So you don't want your statements going out until the 4th, until you kind of close out the previous month. You just got to be careful. If you set it for monthly, if a call's not posted, let's say you did a call on September 30th. This is going to go out October 1st. If that call's not posted on the 30th, on October 1st when that statement goes out, it's not going to be included because it hasn't been posted yet. So that's why sometimes doing a custom date a couple days afterwards might be a better solution, just so you don't miss any of the calls that you did at the very end of the month. Or if it takes you, again, a couple days to kind of close out or verify those calls, this gives you a little bit of a buffer before that statement goes out for them. The flip side of that works, though, too. If I set my statements to go out on the 2nd, but I posted a call for this account on the 1st of the month, well, that's going to be included on their statement now, too, because it's a posted call. So just be careful about that when you're setting up automatic statements or invoices. Now, if you set up an automatic statement and it goes out, let's say monthly. Let's say it goes out on the first of every month. If this account doesn't have a balance, they're still going to get a statement, but it's going to tell them that they don't have any outstanding balances. So it still goes out as a reminder that, hey, maybe they haven't used you for a little bit or whatever the case is. But at this time, it will send out a statement just letting them know they don't have any open balances. So just keep that in mind with automatic invoices as well. All right, so we'll go back to the call here. So that's invoices and statements. Enter payment and credit memos. So this is after you receive a check in the mail for any jobs. It could be motor club jobs or account-based calls. Let's go to a call. We're going to show you two options here. We do have an option to take a payment on the call. All right. So if I had a check for 10 invoices, I could go through and search for all 10 invoices, open each one and do a take payment. Mark it, maybe it was a check, it was reference number ABC. They paid, X amount of dollars. Take payment. Oh, I'm over. I see what it is. So this one's already been paid. You could do that. The only problem with that, at least in the system, it's going to show in that case 10 separate payments when it was really only one check. And then it's also going to set the receipt date on those. So if you're using the daily receipt report, that's supposed to be the day that your system reflects the payment. If you use take payment on the call, the receipt date is always whatever the current date is. So today's the 4th, it would show that that payment was taken on the 4th. If it was supposed to be taken on the 3rd or the 2nd, whatever happened, we just didn't have time. You have to do that through take payment or enter payment here. So if I do that, so let's go Bob's Cadillac, 'cause I know they have some payments here. Let's go set my filter for any time. Again, I can do a specific invoice, a certain job, etc., but I'm going to do all of them. All right, so here's all my invoices. My receipt date now, I can change this. So maybe I want this payment to be reflected as of 10/1, not the 4th. Maybe the check date on this was September 28th. They sent it, that's when they dated it. I didn't get it till the 1st, so that's when I'm going to mark it in my system. They're paying by check. I have a reference number. And then I can put it on a different deposit. This is either going to be the last deposit that was open. So in this case, it was 8/31. Or I can open up a new one. Let's say I want to open up one for the 1st. All right, so open up for the 1st. And they gave me a check amount. Let's say it's $250. So now I can use that $250 to apply towards my invoices in the list here. The deposit date, the receipt date, and the check date. So we're working with 3 separate dates here, and a lot of customers get confused about this. So the check date is obviously whatever the check date is, if there's one there, if it's a check. The receipt date is the day that it's going to be reflected in your system, or the day it shows up on your daily receipt report. So if you're trying to track how much money you brought in for a certain day, that's what the receipt date is. The deposit date is supposed to match your bank statement, the day the money actually hits your bank. This is one of those dates that some people use, some don't. Some customers just match it up with whatever the receipt date is. Other people actually have scheduled deposits that they do. I do my deposits every Friday, so you set it for that Friday date. Or, I do nightly deposits, so you set it for that. A lot of companies tell me they don't really have set days. They just kind of, when they have a chance to get to the bank, that's when they deposit the money. So in that case, I usually tell customers, go ahead and just match it up with your receipt date then. So when you run the report, it will match up. But if you have set deposit dates that you actually do, go ahead and set this for the date that you're actually going to deposit the money, or when the money was deposited into your bank account. All right, so if I use this $250, let's say they paid $54 here, they paid $95 here, they paid $63 here. So I have, and this will count it down. So I've used $212 so far of that $250. I don't know if we can actually see that in the corner. Sorry about that. Let me bring this over here. In the bottom corner, this will show, see it a little bit better there, the total amount of invoices, the amount to apply, and the amount to credit. So far, by clicking those, I've used $212 and I have $38 left. So it kind of just gives you a quick snapshot, so the camera's covering it. So let's say I get to this and I wanted to use it, and saying, nope, you don't have enough money to apply to that invoice. You only have $38 left. Right? Anytime you short anything, it's going to turn this orange color, letting you know you don't have enough money to cover what the balance is. You could also take some of these away. Let's open these up. If you're going to apply it to specifically to line items like our old system did, you could do that as well. You don't have to apply it to the entire call, but you can apply it to line items within that call. So let's say out of this call, they only paid us for the flatbed. Well, short anyways, but let's assume they paid us for just a flatbed, but they're still shorting us on the mileage, or they paid us some of the mileage, and I'm just going to mark exactly what they paid us. We still have an option to do that here, or you could do the simple way, and you're just applying the amount towards the entire invoice, and it will automatically apply the money. So it will, whatever the order is. So if I took these out here and applied it that way, see how it applies it to the first item first, and it just shorts wherever it gets shorted at. So in this case, the mileage would get shorted and the storage would not get paid off. So you could do the simple way or the detailed way. It seems like a lot of customers are doing the simple way. The detailed way is great. It is more time consuming to apply it to each line item specifically, but you have both options by using this. The pencil will still take you back into the call. All right, so if we do that, so here's our call. Let's say when we're entering payment for some reason, we notice that something is actually wrong. It got pushed through accounting. Whatever the reason is, you know it's wrong. Let's say, our flatbed for them, we would never charge 95. It was supposed to be 75. So they shorted us, whatever it is. We can go back into the call and I can fix it here. If I fix a line item that's already been posted, it's going to automatically update. If I actually went back and I added a whole brand new service though, I have to post that new service. So just be careful about what you're doing here. If I save it, this is going to tell me one or more services has been updated. Payment currently applied has been reset to 0. So we do that on purpose, so you're not over applying money to a service. So we don't want that $95 to be applied to a $75 payment now. So we'll automatically zero it out if you end up changing anything on the call. So there is an option for that. If you happen to have an account, let's do 2,500. Let's do 5,000. Let's say you have an account and they usually pay exactly what you're billing for. You could also use this auto apply, and this will just go down the line again from the first invoice all the way down and pay them off. That auto apply only works for accounts that pay everything in full, or depending on your filter that you set, if they're paying all the invoices at the same time, instead of you clicking these one by one, you can use the auto apply. So there is an option for that. You could also use this too if it applies to all of them. So you have two options for that. But that's the payment part of it. So let's just go ahead and save this payment. So we applied our $5,000 payment and we're good. All right. Let's go back in. Let's go to let's go to Bob's Cadillac again. Let's set our filter. So we put all of our information in. Let's just say in this instance, we're not going to use, or we had an overpayment last time, and we want to use that overpayment now to apply towards some of our invoices. Well, that's where we can start using some of our credits. So if this is lit up or not grayed out anymore, we can click on it, and we're going to see all the overpayments that we have. So we have a handful of them here. Let's say we want to use this overpayment for 150. So we click OK. All right. So I want this to show on the first. Maybe I don't have a check date. I'll just mark this as maybe, and we can add more in here, but let's just say I'm just going to mark it as check for right now. I'll use the same deposit date. I don't have a reference number, and I want to use this towards some of my invoices now. So I'm using a credit memo that was already recorded in my system. I don't have to put a new amount over here because I'm not taking in new money. I'm using money that's already applied in the system. So when I save the payment, it's going to apply the 150, and again, those invoices will be paid off. But that's how you use credits. Have a good question. If you have to add a service line, can you refresh, or does it make you repost the entire check? That's a great question. It makes you repost the entire check. So what I would say in that case, so what's happening is they're asking if I add, let's say I had to come onto this call and I had to add a new service. Let's say there's supposed to be a tow. All right, so I saved it. So I haven't posted it yet, but you'll see that tow doesn't appear yet. But if I go back into the call and I post it, say I want it part of -1. That might have been a bad invoice to use. Some of these older ones that are in our database are corrupt, so I get weird stuff that happens. But what would have happened even after it would have posted? It wouldn't update right here for us. You'd have to actually reset your filter. All right, so anytime you reset the filter, so let's do this, 5,000. I started applying some payments, and you're like, oh wait, the one invoice or whatever is outside of my scope or whatever my filter was, so you reset it and you did a search. You just lost everything you just did. So when you're in enter payment, set your filter and leave it. All right. In the case of having to possibly add another service to a call, my recommendation is, let's say you have your $5,000 payment, or let's use this one. Let's say we received $4,000. All right. I know I have another $101 service that has to be added to this. Apply what you have. All right. Oops. Apply what you have, and this is going to create a credit for $101. So the system's going to show that you took in $4,000, but we're going to create a credit for 101. So I hit yes. I don't know if that invoice is going to get paid off or not because of it's corrupt, but that would pay off. I would go back then, add my service, post it, go back into my enter payment screen, and use that credit to apply towards that invoice. You've already recorded the $4,000 payment. You're just using the remaining 101 credit then to pay off, or whatever that extra line item is. That way you're not losing all your progress, or that check that you've entered. So it's a way to kind of do it. You're still doing it in 2 steps, but it's not going to auto refresh on that screen. But that's a good question. We actually get that a lot. The big thing to remember is never reset your filter after you've set it the first time. Otherwise you lose all your work. The only other thing you can do here is if you have 7396. Let's say you're searching for a PO as you're doing this. This up here, this find in results, once you've set your filter, so if I wanted to find that specific invoice, I can type it up here and it pulls it to the top of the list. It would work the same way if I had like a PO number that I was trying to find. So it does partials as well when you're searching here. So it might be a quicker way to find it. I mean, it will actually search any of these fields. So if I'm searching for an amount, maybe you got through an entire check. So I see this happen a lot. You get through an entire check and you get to the bottom and it says that you still have, $80.75 left. Well, yeah, you can scroll up and down and try to find the invoice that you're missing, but a lot of times you can type it in here and pull, oops. There it goes. So these are all the ones that are 8075, or where 8075 appears. So it allows you to try to find the one you're missing as well. All right, so you have that option with this search. But again, anytime you reset your filters, it erases all the work that you did below. So make sure you save what you have, and then possibly in that instance, go ahead and do it as 2 steps using the credit memo. All right. There is a pay $0 invoices here. If you happen to have any $0 invoices, we had an option to automatically pay them off before, but we got some feedback from customers that didn't like that. So there is a manual button. So if you have $0 line items and you want to pay it off as you're entering a payment, you can click this button and it will pay off all the $0 line items. So that's all that button does here. Now, we did an example of creating a credit memo because we had an overpayment. You might need to create a credit memo to pay things off or do a write-off, for example. So if we do a credit memo and we want to create a new one, let's say for Matt's Racing Supply. So we have an overpayment. Let's do a new one. We're going to create a credit. All right. Let's say $500. Comments, write-off. Okay. All right, so it creates my write-off. All right. So by doing this, the system's not going to show that I took the money in as an extra $500 payment, but it's going to be used now. Say credits, I want to pull this 500. I can use this $500 credit now to pay off invoices. Usually this is used, and we might have a payment type of I guess I don't have one in here. We can make a payment type called write-off or bad debt, whatever you want to call it. And that usually pays off. A lot of times you might end up paying off motor club invoices. It's possible that, they shorted you on so many things, you filed so many discrepancies, you tried to rebill stuff, and they're just not going to pay certain amounts. What you can do is you figure out, so maybe I want to write off all of, let's use Bob's Cadillac again. Maybe I want to write off all of September now, whatever's left over. So I come in here and I say, okay, September 1st, September 30th. So I have $279.30. Oops, sorry. $279.30. I forgot the camera's blocking it. To write off for that month. That's what they're not going to pay me. All right. So I create a credit memo for Bob's Cadillac. Go through the process. And then when I come back here, I use that credit. Let's use this one for now. And I apply it to those invoices. So in this case then, in our system, they get paid off or they're cleared off of the enter payment screen. We used a credit memo under write-off or bad debt, whatever we want to call it. So then in our system, it's gone, but we still record it in our reports. So it's a way to keep track of how much you're writing off for different accounts. But it also clears up your payment screen. Because a lot of times, even with the motor clubs, you may end up having, 10 cents, 5 cents, $1.10, stuff like that. So it just clogs up that screen. You're better off getting rid of it. A lot of customers do it on a monthly basis. Some customers do it on a quarterly basis. Have a couple people do it yearly. So it just depends. At some point, you want to write these old balances off, though, so you can keep track of them in the system. Right. So that's the payment portion of it and how the credit memos are used. This here is just a quick report, and we can get to it from the report section too, but it's a quick AR summary report. So this is just going to go in and show you all the accounts that have an open balance. And again, my reports in our test database are bad. I'll flip to a different database here in a second to show you. But that's a good report to run to see which accounts have an open balance. Now our commission stuff over here, the call again has to be posted. We have to verify it. Our commissions has to be set up, and it could be a percentage, it could be after hours, however you have your commission set up. But if we go in here, let's run, let's do anytime. So this will show me each driver and a breakdown of whatever their commission is. Maybe I shouldn't have went back that far. This is pulling commission for, let's go last month. That's better. All right, let's just use this as an example. So we have Alex, Brian, Dan, Dave, Josh, etc. that have these calls that are set up to review for commission. So the same way that we review the calls for accuracy, you review your commission also. So in this example, Alex apparently doesn't get any commission, so it's not calculating anything. But if we look at Dan here, Dan has a couple calls here. So for some reason we get 3% here, 50% here, nothing here. So let's open these up and take a look at it. All right. So the way that this is set up, oh, I see. Okay, what it's doing here. This is averaging out the commission for this call. So based on this this resort, where's that? Chattanooga, I believe. He got 50% on the tow here. No mileage, there was no price, and then there was storage on this call for $540. So based on the total of the call, which was $580, $20 of that's 3%. So this is why it's calculating only 3%. Oh, got a question. Is there a way to apply a credit card to multiple invoices? Not at this time. You'd have to apply a credit card to each individual invoice. We're actually working on a solution for that, though, in the future. Either that or the customer will be able to do a credit card payment themselves from a web portal. So that's a project that we're working on. But yeah, if you're going to do multiple invoices on a single credit card payment, so they're going to pay off, let's say, 10 invoices, and they're going to, it's $1,000 or whatever it is, you're better off running that through your credit card portal for one payment, and then in our system, going through and applying it through the enter payment section to each of those invoices. But yeah, eventually we'll have a better solution for that. Just right now, that's the best option for multiple invoices with a single credit card payment. But good question. See, can you add finish time to calculate commission screen? I've actually been asked that a couple times. There's actually two things I think we're going to be adding to this soon. And I wouldn't have an ETA on it. One would be when you set your filter to include impounded vehicles, because some customers still want to pay commission on those impounded vehicles, but they don't want to post them. So that's going to be one option. But I have been asked to change the time. So the way that the time works now with this assigned, the reason that's there, that's for customers that pay commission based on a time schedule. So, maybe I only pay the drivers after 6 o'clock at night, all the time on the weekend until 6 in the morning. Well, we base that time on the assigned time, not the finish time of that call. But I have been asked to add more columns to this. After the next update that the developers do, we're going to sit down and try to go through some of the small things people have been requesting and try to start adding some of that stuff into the software. But before the Baltimore show, which would be about a month, it's November 15th, most of that stuff is kind of in a queue. But we're going to start working on more of that stuff after hours or after the show. So, but yeah, I've been asked that a few times. So, if we go through the rest of these, but yeah, these are all good questions. If we go through the rest of these, we basically just fix anything we need to fix here. So if for some reason we were supposed to pay on this one, it was supposed to be 25%, I can just put that here and it'll calculate the dollar, or vice versa. If I want to pay them just $5 on this or whatever, I can do that and it would give me my percentage. So you have either option. You can correct this. If it's set up correctly, you really shouldn't have to be correcting a lot of this stuff. There might be manual overrides here and there, but for the most part, this should kind of do it for you automatically. So let's assume for this date range, let's say everybody's good. All right, so I'm going to select all of them. All right, we're going to save and pay this, and then we're going to put this on a date that we're going to pay them. So let's say our commission pay date is this Friday. All right, so I say okay. That's going to push all these jobs to the 5th. All right, so now when I run a report, and you got, hopefully this runs, I got a report here. I can also go to the report section in accounting and do a commission detail or a commission summary. Let's see if this runs here. When you run this report, your pay date to and from is always whatever your pay date is. In this case, it's the 5th. You don't want to run a date range here unless you're trying to find commission that you paid for a certain time frame. That's really the only reason that there's a date range here. We have some customers that want to run, how much did I pay in commission for the year to this driver, or vice, whatever they want to do. Normally, you just run this for the date. Now I can break it down per driver, per division, but let's see if this will run for me here. Yeah, this one works. So the detailed report typically is an internal report because it's going to show what you generated in revenue versus what you paid out in commission. So remember, Alex didn't get any commission, but if we go to Brian, and this breaks it down per line item like that other screen was doing. You got Dan. So Dan brought in $1,000 in revenue. We paid out $200 in commission. All right. So that's a good report if you want to see that. That's really just almost a repeat of the screen that we were just looking at. You could do it by percentage too. The percentage is nice if you want to compare like percentages together. So let's go to Dan. All right, so these are all the calls. So these are all $0 percentage. This is the job that we paid 20% on. So based on that job, he brought in $25. We paid $5. This one was 25%. Same idea. $5.40. So this is again a $0 commission with a total. And then the part that we paid the most commission on, he really only generated $356, but we paid out $178 in commission. The reason this is an important call, you may look at this and say, oh, Dan did great this week. He brought in, $1,000 in revenue or whatever that number is, but their commission is so small. Well, you got to take into account that part of that was actually, in this case, was storage. So more than almost half of that was a storage charge. So it's a way just to break it down to see, is this revenue really the work that they did this week, or is part of that storage for impounded vehicles? So it's a way to break it down that way. But again, these are usually internal reports for you. The summary reports, though, we're going to run this for the 5th as well. These are usually driver reports. So this is going to show just the jobs that they did and how much they made in commission. All right, so if we look at Dan again, so Dan had 5 calls here, the bill to, pickup, drop off vehicle, and just what we paid him in commission. right? And then the total here. So a lot of customers I know, they'll print this out with their commission check and then hand them this. So if the drivers are keeping track of their own jobs, they can compare it with this list and make sure everything's correct. And it does the page breaks automatically. So Dave only had one call, it does the page break, goes to the next one. Josh did one call, it does the page break. The only thing you have to know is on the last page here, the last page is a summary of all the commission paid to everybody. Whoever your last driver is, in this case it's me, you don't want to hand that page to your driver. So just know that that is there. This is usually a page you're going to want to take away and not hand to your driver. All right. I could run that same report by purchase order number. So really the only difference there, instead of it showing the account, it just shows if there's a PO number there, which some of these had, some didn't. So there's some customers that don't want to show which account they ran the call for. They just want to show them the PO. So you have both options when you're doing your commissions. Right? Now, when it comes to commissions, if you're splitting commissions on a call, let's use this this call. I'll show you how to split this. You can split this ahead of time or when you're doing your posting. Oh, that's a... we can use this. If we don't change anything on a call, whoever did the call, in this case Mike, he automatically gets paid commission, assuming they get commission for those services. They get paid commission on those services. These little pencil icons on the service, though, this will allow me to split the commission or give commission to somebody else. Let's just say for this mileage, Mike wasn't going to get paid for the mileage. He was only going to get paid for the tow. And maybe I'm going to get paid commission for that. So, all right, so I put that there. If I don't put any amount here, it's going to use whatever my commission setup is, whatever my percentage is, and pay me off, in this case, the $8.87. Or I can manually put an amount in here. So if I wanted to say, you know, I'm going to pay them $50, all right, I can do that. If I don't put a pay date in here, it will drop onto my commission screen for me for that date range. If I want to just basically bypass that commission screen, I know this is going on, you know, my paycheck for the 5th. I can manually put that there, and it will never show up on the commission screen. It will just show up on the report. So if we save that and run, we should be able to run this commission report for the 5th. There's that $50 call there. All right. It doesn't show an invoice number or anything yet because I haven't posted the call yet. The invoice hasn't technically been created yet. But that's a way to manually override a commission on a call or to give commission to a different driver. So you may have a rec, let's just say you have 2, 3, 4 drivers out on that call. If you break down the labor that they do in the field and they get paid commission on that labor or the services that they do, you want to make sure that on this commission part of it, you set each driver correctly. You'll have a little green icon there letting you know that commission for this service is going to somebody other than, in this case, Mike, or whoever your primary driver was. All right, so that's how you split commission on a single call. If I didn't put this in here, or this, when we went to our commission screen, oh, actually, no, that won't work because I didn't post the call. It would never show up on the screen until I post it, but it would show, you may see that call number twice, once under Mike, once under me, because each service is being paid from that for 2 different drivers. So it will show up twice on this screen and allow you to confirm it if you don't put anything in those boxes, but you can manually override it if you want to. So you have that option as well. Let's see, can you, oh, that's the commission screen, okay. All right, so that's the commissions. That's the same report that we just looked at. Payments and receipts. This basically will just show us all the payments in the system. We can sort this by date, account, so on and so forth. If we do print receipt, this is another way to get the receipt from a call. All right, so this shows it was one payment. So this, remember, that was that $4,000 payment I took in. It only applied almost $3,900 to that service. All right. But it did take in $4,000. I can view the invoices it applied to. So this, let's see if we can find one with, here's a good one. So I clicked on this $5,000 payment. If I do view invoices, this will show me which invoices that payment was applied to. So I had partial payment here. This one was paid off and this one was paid off. And then if I need to reverse it, that's what this button does. And everybody doesn't have security for this, but if I undo the payment, if you do have credit card, and this was a credit card payment, and you have credit card integration with us, this will issue the money back to their credit card. If you wanted to reverse it maybe just in your system, but you don't want to actually refund their credit card, you can check or uncheck this based on the situation. Backs out one receipt for $5,000, and then those invoices now become unpaid. So when you're backing out payments, it's recommended to check either the receipt or the invoices to make sure that you're not applying, or this payment hasn't been applied to, in this case, multiple invoices. The reason for that is if you back out that payment, you reverse the payment off of every single one of those invoices. So you got to be careful. If it's one payment for, let's say, 10 invoices and you reverse it, well, those 10 invoices now are all unpaid in the system. So just be careful about that with the payments. But again, that's a security setting with that. Let's see, when looking at receipts, can you see if part of the payment went to a credit memo? Not in that section. I actually had that situation today earlier. I'm going to be working on a report for that. But that's a good question. It's confusing looking at that $4,000 payment here and seeing that, wait a second, well, only, $38.99 was applied. Why, where's the rest of it? So yes, I am working on something like that. I'll probably end up doing a report to show that though. But yeah, like I said, I ran across that part of it today. I mean, we could run for the date range a credit memo distribution report to see that, but it would be easier if you could just see it all on the same screen. So I'll work on something like that. The other way to see payments, now if we do it from here, that's a way to see all of them or kind of narrow it down. Maybe you're just working on a single call and you want to see the payment. So this one with this 9336 had a payment on it. We could go to the more drop down and view the payments. We can do that from within the call too. Here. And this will show the payments for just that single call. So it's a way to quickly pull it up if you need to, but again, I can view the receipts, invoices, or back out the payment right from here. So you can do it either way when you're working with payments. Close and open deposits, or close open deposits. So in our example, in our enter payment, I open up a deposit for 10-1. If I'm done with it for the day and I want to close it, I can do that. So that closes it, so I don't have any open deposits anymore. And I can print my deposit ticket if I needed to. I don't know if this one's going to work in this database. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So these are old deposits, though, that we had open. This is actually 39 pages. So I can print open deposits or my deposit ticket at the end of the shift if I need to. All right. So that's the main accounting side of it. As far as all the accounting reports, all these reports will work, but the calls have to be posted. So if there's any certain reports you're looking for or certain numbers that aren't already in here, a lot of times, a lot of these have group by boxes that you may have a group by that you like instead. Like the sales by service, for example, has multiple group bys, depending on what you're looking for. Just know if the call's not posted, it's not going to show in here. All right. But that's the main accounting side of it. Now it's going to flip into more of the QuickBooks side of it. There's kind of two things that has to happen for this to work. One, it has to be turned on, and I'll show you how to do that. So in your company settings, you have a new tab here that says QuickBooks. You can either set it for online or desktop. All right, if you set it for desktop, I'm going to leave it online because I want to show you how this works. But if you set it for desktop, there's a download link here, and then you could download it to your desktop. If it's online, you need to connect this to your QuickBooks. And then once it's connected to your QuickBooks, you will have to do it every year, basically, to reconnect it. But once it's connected, it will just automatically shoot those invoices over. That's step one, basically turning it on. Step two, we have services. So these are all the services we have in Dispatch Anywhere. You can call these whatever you want to. It doesn't matter. We need to know what you call that item name in QuickBooks and specifically what that's matching up to. So let me bring up my QuickBooks. Maybe. Well, hold on, let's do this. Might be on the other. Nope. Let's try to reopen this here. All right, since QuickBooks takes forever to open, I'll do the other stuff. I'll show you what the item name needs to be in QuickBooks. The account, so we have all our different accounts in QuickBooks or in Dispatch Anywhere. We need to know exactly what that account name is in QuickBooks as well. So this is your customer name in QuickBooks, and your services are your item names in QuickBooks. So let me log back in here. So we'll let that go through. While that opens, I'm going to log into our other database real quick. All right, this is my QuickBooks testing database here. So I have a couple jobs that I've already posted for this to work here. I'll show you QuickBooks Online first. This one should actually be okay. So I've already done the steps where I've matched everything up. I've synced my account in settings. So if I do send to QuickBooks Online, I can set a date range here. Now I'm just going to do the first because I have two different things queued up here. So if I do just the first, I can do a date range if I want to, but let me just do the first. I hit export. In this case, I have 3 invoices for each date, the 3rd and the 4th. This should process my 3 invoices. Export completed. Nothing on my log because nothing failed. Basically everything sent over successfully, so we're good to go. All right, I can close that and I'm done. I can open up my QuickBooks Online and everything will be there. If I can do... Let's see if it will let me log in here. Oops. They must have, the developers were using it. They might have changed my password. Let me try it one more time here. They must have changed my password. Okay, so I can't sign into my online. I can show you the desktop version, which is going to be actually very similar to it. I'm going to show you the transferred invoices here. I'm waiting for this to still come up here. Oop, is this going to my other... Hold on. This might be going to my other screen here. Let's flip over here. Nope. Must still be opening here. I'm still waiting for it. I do want to transfer it though. All right, well, while that opens, this is the exporter that will download when you do your QuickBooks. When you open up QuickBooks and you open up your exporter, you do need to make sure you right-click and run as an administrator. Yes. This is going to make you log in each time you do it. So you would use your, let's say if we do like dev mat, set my date range for the stuff I want to send, and hit export. Now, if there's any problems, it's going to show up in this log here. Hoping this thing opens up here. This might be, it was working earlier. Is it going to a different? Here, let's do this. Give me 1 second here. Technical difficulties here. Hopefully this will fix it here. Let's kill QuickBooks from the background processes. Run this again. Now we'll wait for it to open. Let's see if this this works here. Sorry about this. I thought I had it open. I thought it was ready to go. Let's see if we can get it open here. If not, I might not be able to do a transfer. We might, if this doesn't work, we might have to do one-on-one trainings for anybody that needs QuickBooks QuickBooks training. Usually the setup isn't too bad. It's matching up the right pieces. If something doesn't match up, it's going to tell us in the log that something doesn't match up. It seems like it's stuck. Oh, there it goes. There it is. All right, so let's bring this up. So the two things I wanted to show you are the customer. So these I got ABC Ford and Matt's Racing Supply. This is what's getting fed into this field here. Spelling, capitalization, spacing, anything. 100% accurate or exact. If it doesn't match exactly, it's not going to transfer. So you got to be careful about that. And then the other thing that we're using is from the list here, the item list. These are the different services that we have. Whatever this service is called, in this case loaded miles, we need to make sure that that matches up to whatever service we have in here. So those two things, as long as those two things are matched up, this will transfer over. So if we make this a little bit smaller here. So we ran this as an administrator. I ran this as an administrator. Let's do the fourth, and I hit export. If this is the first time that you're doing this, we need to basically allow this invoice add plugin to work. So we can either do no, yes prompt each time, yes whenever QuickBooks company file is open, or yes always. The last option won't work. The company file has to be open for us to transfer it. I have it set up for prompting each time for testing, so I'm going to leave it that way. I'll hit continue and done. And then those invoices, so DevMatt logged in, connected to QuickBooks, found 3 invoices, disconnected. So if there's no errors on here, those invoices transferred over. So if we look in our QuickBooks, here's my 3 invoices that transferred over. So pretty simple once it's set up, and I'll show you kind of what transfers in here. So the QuickBooks invoice is not going to be as detailed as the one in Dispatch Anywhere. A lot of customers just use this to get the number over to QuickBooks. So we have the bill to account, the date, the invoice number, PO if we had one, the items, the quantities, the totals, and then the call number and possibly the VIN number if you had it on the call. Those are the things that are getting transferred over to desktop and online. So we don't transfer payments at this time. We are possibly looking into doing payments in the future, but as of right now, it only transfers the invoice. So if you're a customer that does payments and you want to do it in both systems, you're going to be doing double entry in that case. When it comes to QuickBooks, we have this exporter. A lot of our customers, though, they usually do a lump sum. They'll do like, all of September, they'll just make one journal entry into QuickBooks and do it that way. So that is another option if you don't want to transfer each and every invoice over. But we do have the option to do both desktop and online as well. So setup again is pretty simple, but if you're having trouble with it, you can't decipher what the error messages are, just let us know. We can always help you out with that, or at least I can help you out with that stuff too. So basically that kind of sums up everything we wanted to go over with the accounting training today. A lot of great questions today. Do we have any other questions on anything else right now? As I kind of get this stuff set up here. If anybody's else is typing a question, I'll go over this real quick. This login here is the same login you use for Dispatch Anywhere. If you're logged into Dispatch Anywhere with the same login, it will kick you out. So just know that whatever you're doing over here, make sure you take care of it and save what you're doing, because as soon as you log in to transfer this stuff, it will kick you out of your Dispatch Anywhere. If you need a second login or a separate login just for QuickBooks, though, let us know. We can help you set that up. That way it doesn't interrupt your regular dispatching. The other little things with QuickBooks we'll kind of go over, just kind of kill some time here if anybody has questions or they're typing stuff in. QuickBooks, it has to either be run in single user mode, or if you're running in multi-user mode, you have to be the only person that's in the software. If there's multiple people in your database, it's not going to transfer. It's going to fail each time. QuickBooks and their plugins really only likes it in single user mode or the single person in a multi-user mode. So I'm in single user mode, so it's going to work every time. If you are in single user mode, you do your transfer, you switch it back to multi-user mode, everybody will see the changes that were just updated with that. But if, again, if you have a multi-user mode system for QuickBooks, if you're the only one in there, you'll be fine. And then the big thing, like I said, make sure that QuickBooks and the exporter are both run as an administrator, and then it will transfer over for you. So anybody that's using old QuickBooks transfer, it was kind of a pain to see what some of the error messages were. We tried to clean it up and make it as simple as possible. So if you are getting error messages, most of the time you'll probably be able to work through them yourself. But absolutely, if you're stuck, you're spending too much time on it, call us. We can walk you through it and pretty much explain exactly what's wrong and get you up and running here within usually a couple of minutes. So doesn't look like there's any other questions that are coming in here. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this this training today. It will be recorded and put up there in a couple days. Again, in 2 weeks, we'll be doing a settings training to kind of bring everything together, how everything's set up, how to put the accounts in, drivers, passwords, all that stuff. So again, 2 weeks next Thursday at 2 o'clock. If you have any other questions or you do want to do any trainings, you can let me know. I'm going to go ahead and put my email address in the chat here. So if you guys have any questions, you can always email me if you want to set up additional training or need some, just one-on-one training. Let me know. We can help with that. When I get more training on impounds, just give me a call. I can set up a training with you, John, and we can go through all that stuff. It's probably easier to maybe use your database to go through some of that stuff. We'll just do a one-on-one training. Just shoot me a message. I'll get you on the training schedule. We probably need maybe a half hour, 45 minutes to do that. So. Just shoot me a message. So you're welcome. But again, if questions come up later, you think of something later on today, or you have some of those unique situations that you're having trouble with, just give us a call or shoot me a message. More than happy to help you out. But with that, again, I thank everybody for your time today, and we'll see you next time. All right, thank you very much.